Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at the two worst polls that I can find in the 2024 presidential election. Now these are only going to be ones that were taken close to the election. We're not going to go back to last summer. But it wasn't too long ago we saw headlines like this from New York Post claiming that election polling could be underestimating Harris this time because in the past two it underestimated Trump, and they're probably not going to make that same mistake for a third consecutive election. Well, it looks like they did. Let's start here on New Hampshire. Here's the Wikipedia page of the final polling, and it looks like the final result was somewhere close to a 3-point win for Harris. The average of the aggregate polling had Harris up by about 6.5 points. But what is this poll here from Dartmouth College? Is that a typo? It says Harris 62%, Trump 34%. There's 4% undecided, but that is a 28-point lead for Harris. It really does seem like a typo because that would be off by 25 points if it was right. They did use 587 likely voters in their sample size, and it was taken right before the election at the beginning of November. So let's pull this poll up, and this does confirm the same data we were just looking at. Came out the day before the election. It had a margin of error of plus or minus 4 points. And let's see the other questions. It has right track or wrong track. Right is at 29, or wrong is at about 58. So that doesn't seem way too far out of the norm. But then they've got Joe Biden's approval rating. It was at 53. Disapprove is at 43.5. That seems higher than I would expect. Then let's go down here. It asks, what is the most important issue facing America? The top issue here is democracy at 28. Then we've got the economy and immigration. But let's see, here's the key question. If the 2024 presidential election were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were? Kamala Harris, the Democrat, 61.9. Donald Trump, the Republican, 33.5. Another candidate, 4.6. We've all seen some bad polls, and of course these are going to be the worst. But seriously, this thing is just so far off the rails, I don't think there ever were any rails. Even in the wildest scenario where Harris dominates in a blue wave national environment, I think she'd be lucky to get half of this margin. That would be 14 points. 28 points just seems like a complete typo. I don't see how anybody could take this seriously, even for a split second. They even back it up further. They've got the governor's race. Kelly Ayotte won by around 10 points, but they had Joyce Craig ahead by 17. That's another 27 to 28 point miss. They are consistently horrible, I'll give them that. Even in the U.S. House races, they were way off. I have no idea why they polled this state. They have no idea how to read an electorate. The sad thing is there's probably a lot of people that spent their time conducting this polling, and this college is actually in the state in question, New Hampshire. They used their precious time to get what they thought was some critical information about a state, but they not only swung and missed, they completely struck out. This was a total no-hitter. I don't know how they could have put this out because it just does not make any sense on its face. Of course, it's a complete outlier, and it's easy, and it's fun to pile on when they wiped out so bad. But they've got the party breakdown here in this sample. They've got 30% Dem, 31 Republican, 39 Independent. But if you go down a couple here, I think they might have wanted to take a look at this table. Who did you vote for in the 2020 presidential election? 35% Trump, 59% Biden. Why was that not a gigantic red flag when Biden only won the state by a little over 7 points? Here they have him winning it by 23. So I don't know who to blame for this, probably whoever's at the top. It does seem like sheer incompetence to put this thing out. If you go down even further, they do have some more demographic breakdown. And underneath all that, they've got the methodology. And I tried to look it over, and I don't think there's going to be any satisfying conclusion. Once you have such a dramatic outlier, I think you've got to scrap the poll and start over. But no, they decided to put it out, and in the process completely wipe out any reputation they might have had. So this might be their last attempt at trying to capture what anybody thinks about anything in New Hampshire or probably any other state. So you can't say enough bad things about this poll. It's gross, it's disgusting, it's very off-putting if you have the slightest bit of confidence in allowing other people to do what they do best. It's supposed to be polling, but we know in this case it's a complete lie, and it's really an exercise in total self-destruction. I'm sure they do a lot of other great things at Dartmouth College, but it's abundantly clear that polling is not going to be one of them. Now let's take a look at the other poll that I think a lot of people are going to be more familiar with. It came out right before the election. It's from the Hawkeye state. That's going to be Iowa. Here's the final polling on Wikipedia. And let's look down here at the race with third-party candidates. And we don't have a lot of polling here, but we do have one from Selzer. That's the highly reputable pollster for this state. And what do we have? We've got Kamala Harris with a 3-point lead, 47 to 44. 6% undecided. That's a clear swing to the left from their previous poll in September, which had Trump up by 4 points. And it's also clearly distinct from the polling we've got above, which is just a head-to-head horse race. All those pollsters have Trump in the lead by at least 6 points. Some of those are Republican aligned, but Emerson College also does have Trump up by 9 to 10. So given the reputation of this pollster, it seemed like they know what they're doing. Everybody was waiting for this poll to drop because we really had nothing coming out of Iowa. I think everybody was expecting Trump to have kind of a mid to high single single-digit lead. Republicans and a lot of people in the middle completely dismissed this. I was one of them. I thought Trump could win this state by 10 to 11 points. Turns out he won it by, I think, more than 13. This poll did cause me to drop my margin, maybe 1 or 2 points, so it did have an impact. But given there was no other data in this state or any of the surrounding states pointing to anything showing Trump totally wiping out where it looks like he would do his strongest, to me it was easy to dismiss this as an outlier. But you never know, maybe they were onto something. Democrats sure hoped that was the case. I saw some people's maps showing Iowa is going to go to Harris. That means Wisconsin is going to go safe for Harris. In the end, I think it was kind of cruel and misleading to give Democrats a little bit of hope, thinking they actually might be able to flip this solid red state. Here's a Des Moines Register headline: Kamala Harris leapfrogs Donald Trump to take lead near Election Day. The nationally recognized Iowa poll shows Kamala Harris picking up support from women to surpass Donald Trump in a ruby red state he won twice. If that was even close to the case, then I thought this election was totally over. Harris is going to sweep definitely every battleground state. I think she would flip Texas, maybe Florida. We might be looking at Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas. So either they were going to be the genius heroes that saw what nobody else could see. And we all know how it turned out. That's about a 17-point polling miss. And that's horrible for anybody in this business. But the fact that this is a reputable pollster, or at least it used to be, that puts an extra spotlight on this poll. We can go down here and read more what they say, but at this point it's laughable and it's totally false. They do mention they had a June poll that showed Trump with an 18-point lead over Biden. I remember that one at the time I covered it, and back then I thought, hey, this is a reputable pollster. Maybe it's true. I didn't think the state would be quite that red, but maybe they know what they're talking about. Well, now we know 5 months later they actually don't know what they're talking about. It looks like they've never polled this state before in their lives. You just saw all the other pollsters. They were much, much closer to the actual margin. Even the Republican-aligned pollsters, they also underestimated Trump. So how could they get it so wrong? Well, again, the data is here, but we're not going to go over all of it. They did use 808 likely voters in this sample. They took it at the very end of October. The margin of error is plus or minus 3.4, but I don't think this actually changed anything in the race. I don't think Harris or Trump visited the state because I don't think either of them believed it for a second. If we go down here just a bit, they've got the graph showing their previous polls. The two previous polls prior to September were not perfect, but I'd say we're probably only off by a few points. The one in September that showed a 4-point race, that one did give me a little bit of pause because, again, I was thinking this is Selzer. Maybe they're onto something. But I thought the worst case scenario for Trump would be he would win the state by 4.5 to 5 points. Somewhere in the middle would be about 9 to 10. And if he had a great night, which he did, then I think he could get over 12, which it did. They've got independent women here backing Harris by 28 points. Then they've got women over 65 going to Harris 63 to 28. These stats seem like they're on a totally different planet. As I scroll through here, feel free to pause and look at this poll with more depth if you'd like. I don't want to sound excited that a reputable pollster absolutely had a miss, but there's no way around it. This is going to completely erode their reputation. Next time a poll comes out, if it's unfavorable for the Republicans, they easily can dismiss it, and I think they would have good cause to do so. And then if a poll comes out and it's favorable for the Republicans, they might think they're up by another 5 or 10 points. It's going to be tough for Selzer to recover from this. If they're still around, it might take a few years. But hey, before the election, there was always a small chance that this poll was actually going to be close. If it was, then they would certainly be the geniuses that they kind of were before this poll came out. If we look at Selzer on Wikipedia, there's a nice table here that shows their final polls for the races that they've polled. All the way in the bottom here, we've got the big miss. That's a 16.2 hit in favor of the Democrats and against the Republicans. Now, this pollster is not going to be perfect. They've got some misses just like anybody else. When it's close, you're not going to be able to nail it every time. But the recent elections all were pretty close. The last one they were wrong on was governor in 2018. They had the Democrat up by 2, but Kim Reynolds actually won that by almost 3. So that's a miss of 4.7. Plus, they also got the call wrong. So a below average poll there as well. But nothing is going to be able to compare to this one. Now, if it was like the New Hampshire poll we just took a look at from Dartmouth College, as far as I'm aware, their reputation is not stellar like it is for Selzer here in Iowa. So the New Hampshire poll was a bigger miss. But considering this reputation, this could easily be considered a bigger blunder. So those are a couple of polls that not only missed the mark, they didn't get within 10 miles of it. As much as we want the polls to be right, it's always fun to take a look at the complete outliers. There were some more out there, but I don't think they were as bad as this, but there could always be some other ones I didn't find. The reason I showed these is because they were taken right before the election. You could easily go way back and find a poll from 3 or 6 months ago. The polls that are wrong that far back, I don't think are as exciting to point out as these. So I'm going to leave it there for now. Let me know in the comments, which of these two polls do you think is worse? Is there any way Selzer can recover her reputation in Iowa? And are there any other polls that you thought were as bad or worse than these two? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.